So, in the world of growing AI, especially in the Hollywood system, in the filmmaking space, there's an area of filmmaking that is extremely important that AI is kind of not necessarily replacing, but definitely going to change the workforce as we know it. And I know this is very obvious. I want to talk specifically about actors because Nicolas Cage recently came out and warned actors about a very specific technology around AI. And this is everyone has so many questions about AI. Even I do. I'm looking at this constantly. And this is kind of something that I saw coming. I believe I talked about it on a podcast at one point, just coming straight from my head. And now it's actually looking more and more like a reality. Nicolas Cage took to stage in the 25th Newport Beach Film Festival on Sunday to urge up-and-coming actors from giving into pressure from employers opting to use artificial intelligence to change or otherwise manipulate their performance. Film performance to me is very much a handmade, organic, from scratch process. It's from the heart. It's from the imagination. It's from thoughts and details and thinking and honing and preparing. There's a new technology in town. It's technology that I didn't have to contend with for 42 years until recently. But these 10 young actors, I guess this is referring to people that were, in the stage, this generation most certainly will be. And they are calling it EBDR. This technology wants to take your instrument. We are the instruments as film actors. We are not hiding behind guitars and drums. Employment-based digital replica, or EBDR, is one of the two digital replicas permitted by the SAG-AFTRA deal struck with the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers or Studios after the conclusion of the dual Hollywood strikes in fall of 2023. This type of generative AI is created through the performer's physical participation for a specific project under the terms of employment. Let's just wrap our minds around what this technology does. I wanted to start here with this little section from this video because I think this woman does a pretty decent job explaining a little bit of the rules, and then I'll share some more of my thoughts after.
Employment-based digital replica. That means as an actor, the producers can scan you and use you. They must give you 48 hours notice before doing so and ask for your consent. It has to be clear and not hidden. It has to be obviously in your contract that they are going to be scanning you. As actors, we do get paid during the time of making the replica, and we do get paid if the digital replica of ourselves is used on set during an episode or during a scene. We get paid as if we did that work. So we get the same day rate, we get the same residuals, we get the same pension and health. Now, let's say in your contract, they only asked you for a digital replica for, let's say, season 1, episode 1, right? And they're like, oh, we only want the digital replica for that episode. If they want to use it for another episode, they cannot just use it. They have to then ask for your permission to use it for an additional episode. But this cannot be upfront. This has to be after you already completed episode 1, and you can come back and ask for episode 2 or 3, etc.
So it's just kind of getting into the details of everything. I think the biggest thing Nicolas Cage is warning about is the fact of essentially stealing the instrument, stealing the organic nature of performance that he's always known his career, and that everyone's known, honestly, their entire careers and their entire lives, because organic performance is all we've had up to this point, with the exception of animation, but there was still voice talent in that animation. So essentially these EBDRs, right, employment-based digital replicas, is basically scanning you and allowing them to maybe in a performance de-age you, right, if you're acting, possibly change the way your mouth moves to say a different word, right? There's always just been, whenever there was ADR, right? Or filler for certain scenes, extra audio that needs to be thrown into the scene for context. They would always just do cutaways because it's a lot easier. You could avoid that with something that's like an AI assistant tool that could just very quickly change the mouth movements. There's also probability that there's going to be entire performances that are created by another person, but in the likeness of a popular actor. So as an example, let's just say they really wanted the MCU to keep Iron Man around, and they wanted to make sure that Iron Man always looks like Tony Stark. This pretty much runs the entire gamut on having to recast any actor. If you scan them and you say, we're going to use AI tools to replace you because we want a different performer, or you don't want to work on these film projects anymore, but we want to keep your likeness, you get a paycheck. It's not as big as if you were here, and you don't have to spend all your time working. We could just have someone perform movements, and then we will replace the likeness of that performer with, say, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. This is actually a really interesting technology because I feel like there's going to be a certain amount of up and coming actors who really embrace this, who are really going to say, if I can build a reputation as an actor, if I can become a face that's well known, right? If I can build a certain popularity, then people will want to use me in films, or at least my likeness, and I can start selling my likenesses to different organizations without literally even having to be there. Now, that's taking that to kind of an extreme version of this, but also apply it to video games. There's going to be an element as video games become even more and more realistic in looking, especially with individual characters' performance. We already know that actors play and do motion capture or performance capture for video games. So imagine the actor just going into a scan, and then they can use that actor's likeness as a replica for a video game character. There's a whole lot of uses for this, but the biggest question that actors have is it harming me? Well, I will say, just like any other job in the AI industry, it's going to lower the level of skill that is required to do a specific job like acting, and is going to amplify certain people that stand above the rest. And that amplification is going to come via interest. It's going to come via organic, analog performances that people really resonate with and enjoy. What's really going to stand out are performances, say, like Timothée Chalamet, right? Timothée Chalamet just won an award for Complete Unknown. I watched that film. That's a very organic story. And I think there's going to be stories that are always going to be desired in that nature. It's done a traditional way. It's going to be done with actors, and there's going to be a romantic environment around that. But these big, blockbusters, even in Star Wars, in The Mandalorian, for season 3, Pedro Pascal was not there on set. He had a body double. He just did the voiceover for the majority of the season. Imagine that same principle, except you don't have to wear a costume like the Mandalorian in order to do it. All you have to do is just have an actor read a page so they can get your voice, and then scan their body and their face and their movements and performances for like an hour, 2 hours. And then the actor collects a paycheck, and then the studio can do whatever they want with that replica, barring a few agreements, I'm sure, to utilize that replica with. It's just going to get kind of wild out there. When it comes to filmmaking, there's new technologies that's just changing the landscape in a huge way. And if you're an indie filmmaker, which is kind of the world that I live in, it's not that this information and this technology is not going to be unavailable to you. You never know what could happen. Like, there could literally be tools where you can contract or lease or just purchase, right, the replica of some, mid-tier actor online somewhere and include it in your film and make a great thumbnail and even have their performance and everything very similar to what the actual actor does. And maybe that might launch indie filmmaking into another area. For now, I feel like this is going to be exclusive when it comes to the big studios, as this employment-based digital replica agreements are being fleshed out, and as AI continues to progress in a good direction and not like a very unknown direction. There has to be a lot of things that are in concrete for Hollywood to put a bunch of money into it. And so unless that is clear and can be defended by lawyers, they're not going to pull the trigger on something. They want less lawsuits, I'm sure. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the film industry when it comes to acting and this employment-based digital replica. They're just trying to replace the need to pay these actors a full wage for entire production. And in some ways it could benefit people. Like if you weigh the costs of spending time on a film acting, unless you're really passionate about the role, you may be able to sell your likeness and your performance and make more money potentially, at least at the beginning stages, than you would if you just were actually acting in the film. So I don't know. Nicolas Cage is probably onto something. It might be something that people need to be warned to stay away from and to not let people be taken advantage of. And at the same time, I think there's going to be a handful of people that embrace it and actually have some version of success when they do embrace it and are going to live in a completely different world of acting than Nicolas Cage did. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And thank you for liking this video and subscribing to this channel.